goes when it comes down to it. Sorry. All right. Thanks, Stuart Home, for joining us this hour. You know, I thought today was going to be kind of a sleepy news day, right? At last. Started off as kind of a sleepy news day. But then all HE double hockey sticks broke out this afternoon and into tonight, and now it has turned into another totally nuts news day. All right, as of about 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, BuzzFeed News was first to report that the chief strategist for the Bernie Sanders for President campaign in 2016, Bernie Sanders' chief strategist, Tad Devine, is going to be a witness for the prosecution in the federal criminal case against Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Or if he's not going to actually appear at trial as a witness, Tad Devine at least now says he is helping the prosecutors in Robert Mueller's office in their case against Paul Manafort. Tad Devine's consulting firm putting out this statement tonight, quote, "The special counsel has asked Tad Devine to assist in the prosecution of their case against Paul Manafort regarding his firm's work on media consulting on past political campaigns in Ukraine. When the special counsel sought assistance from us in its ongoing investigation, we readily provided it." The firm also said that they have been, quote, "assured by the special counsel's office that we have no legal exposure and did not act unlawfully." So this is Tad Devine's firm saying he's not in trouble, but he's helping Mueller out against Manafort. You know, it is, I think, in some American electoral politics ways, it is jarring to see the guy from the Bernie Sanders campaign caught up in the Manafort case brought by the special counsel, right? But it's not actually a huge surprise if you have been following the evidence in that case and if you know something about Manafort's history. Up through 2012, we have known that Tad Devine, like Paul Manafort, he did do overseas political consulting work in Ukraine. He worked alongside Manafort. And Tad Devine's name is all over the evidence list that prosecutors submitted in the Manafort case just this past week. So that was when the prosecutors were basically notifying the court that things related to Tad Devine, emails and files and documents with Tad Devine's name on them, they were going to be cited as evidence in court in the Paul Manafort case. Well, similarly, Paul Manafort's lawyers today filed hundreds of pages of documents in federal court, exhibits basically in support of their defense of Paul Manafort. And in those exhibits, you find Tad Devine's name and email address all over those as well. So it's not that surprising that he's going to turn up somehow in the Paul Manafort case. Now we know how exactly he's going to turn up. I mean, so far, the Bernie Sanders campaign has factored into the Russia scandal in a very specific way, right? Russian messaging and Russian propaganda online, Russian interactions with WikiLeaks about the theft and the staged dissemination of stolen documents from the Democratic Party. We know that the Bernie Sanders campaign factored into all of that because a significant part of those efforts was aimed at boosting the Sanders campaign against Clinton, stoking resentment and grievances among Sanders supporters toward Hillary Clinton and her campaign, and ultimately trying to prevent Bernie Sanders supporters after the primary from turning out to vote in the general election against Trump and for Clinton. So we've known that was part of the Russia scandal because it was part of Russia's strategy in trying to elect Trump. Well, now we will see laid out in court the relationship between Bernie Sanders' senior strategist and Donald Trump's indicted campaign chairman. We will see whatever it is that Tad Devine is offering prosecutors about his work alongside Paul Manafort in the former Soviet Union, which of course has led to this litany of felony charges against Manafort. The Manafort trial is due to start early next week. So, wow, right? That just happened tonight. And that news came on top of this bombshell report in the Wall Street Journal this afternoon that a man named Alan Weisselberg has been subpoenaed by a federal grand jury in the Southern District of New York, the federal grand jury that is considering the criminal investigation into the president's longtime personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Now, the Michael Cohen case, big picture, it's still basically one big open question. in terms of what kind of legal trouble might lie ahead for the president himself if his longtime attorney, Michael Cohen, who apparently taped his conversations with President Trump, among other things, whether he's ultimately criminally charged by federal prosecutors in New York. We still don't know if that's going to be an issue for the president himself. We still don't know how that is all going to play out. Everybody's watching that, of course, very closely. But with this guy, if Alan Weisselberg has been subpoenaed, if this report in the Wall Street Journal this afternoon is right, that honestly has way bigger implications than just the case against Michael Cohen. Alan Weisselberg is not a household name, but he is in the Trump household. He's in his 70s. He has worked for the Trump family his entire adult life. He started off working for the president's father, I believe, in the 1970s. He has been at the Trump Organization apparently since its inception. He's known to be not only a very trusted, very senior figure in the Trump Organization, he's also been directly involved in a number of financial dealings related to the president and his business that have since come under legal scrutiny. For example, Mr. Weisselberg is said to have been personally involved in the payments to women who allege that they had affairs with President Trump. According to the Wall Street Journal, Alan Weisselberg was also close enough to the president and his family that he was the one who handled their household expenditures. Personal expenditures and purchases for Mr. Trump and his family, including Mr. Trump's dealings with various banks. Mr. Weisselberg is the treasurer of the Donald J. Trump Foundation, which of course has just come under very aggressive legal scrutiny in New York State. Alan Weisselberg is such an important and senior figure in the president's business empire that when the president announced that he was handing off day-to-day control of his business, now that he's president, the common shorthand we use for that transaction is to say the president handed over control of his business to his two sons, Don Jr. and Eric. But actually, the group he handed over control of his business to is his two sons, Don Jr. and Eric, but also Alan Weisselberg. Alan Weisselberg is the linchpin of all Trump financial matters. Not incidentally, Mr. Weisselberg is also reported to have been personally responsible for preparing Donald Trump's tax returns for years. Oh, if he has now been subpoenaed by a federal grand jury in the Southern District of New York, that is potentially a very big deal.
Yo, would it be?
We know that the president has been particularly sensitive, even particularly emotional around investigators and even the press pushing too hard when it comes to his personal finances and the finances around his business. Alan Weisselberg has been subpoenaed before a federal grand jury in New York. That is the kind of thing that is likely to push the president's buttons. But oh wait, there's more. Breaking news even beyond that tonight from Andrew Desiderio and Kevin Poulsen at the Daily Beast. This is an important story. Tomorrow there's going to be a little bit of a strange scene at the White House. They are apparently planning tomorrow on bringing in the president himself to make a big show of him personally chairing a National Security Council meeting about election security. A meeting about keeping the midterm elections this year safe from any external meddling. That, of course, is rich, given the fact that the president denies the conclusion that his outside the Kremlin interfered with and hacked into our last election.
It's fucking lit. It's VHS. Kind of, not the exact one, but I don't have
keeping our next election safe to run it himself. So that should be fascinating. Midterm elections are only about 100 days away. I should tell you that Democrats have really been stamping their feet about the security of that election. They've been stamping their feet with sort of increasing fervor and even desperation over the past few days and weeks. You might have seen a few days ago, this was Democrats in the House shouting USA, USA, USA on the floor of Congress as they tried unsuccessfully to stop Republicans from zeroing out funding to the states for election security this year. Democrats lost that fight to get that funding for the states, but they made a huge show of it, and they went down swinging. Soon thereafter, 20 Democratic state attorneys general and 1 Republican from Michigan wrote this letter to Congress begging for more money for election security to help the states protect the elections and the midterms this year. Even a former senior Trump administration official, Trump's White House Homeland Security Director, Tom Bossert, told Michael Isikoff at Yahoo News today that Trump's decision to eliminate the job of the White House cybersecurity chief a couple of months ago in April, he tells Isikoff at Yahoo News today that that was a dangerous decision. He says it leaves no one, quote, minding the store when it comes to stopping efforts by foreign adversaries to hack into the midterms like they did to the presidential election in 2016.
That's good.
So on this issue of the security of this election,
like
100 days out, a lot of people have been throwing red flags about this recently. The Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, less than 2 weeks ago, gave this very ominous speech in which he said when it comes to cyber attacks in this upcoming midterm election, the warning lights are blinking red. He said in that speech 2 Fridays ago that he was deliberately choosing that language because it's the same language used by then CIA Director George Tenet to explain the missed warning signals about the impending al-Qaeda attack just before 9/11 in the summer of 2001. Dan Coates saying he's deliberately choosing that same language to talk about the threat we are now facing, including from Russia toward our next election. After Dan Coates made those sort of alarming remarks 2 Fridays ago, a vice president at Microsoft gave a public interview last week at the Aspen Security Forum where he announced that even just at his one company, just at Microsoft, they had already found at least 3 congressional campaigns for this year's midterms that were already being attacked by Russian state-sponsored hackers.
We did discover that a fake Microsoft domain had been established as the landing page for phishing attacks, and we saw metadata that suggested those phishing attacks were being directed at 3 candidates who are all standing for election in the midterm elections.
In this year's election, 2018, phishing attacks against
Russia of 3 candidates for election.
Can you tell us who they were?
We can't disclose that information because we maintain our customers' privacy, so we won't go there. But I can tell you that they were all people who, because of their positions, might have been interesting targets from an espionage standpoint as well as an election disruption standpoint.
So the staff of 3 congressional candidates being attacked by Russian hackers using the same techniques we saw used to such great effect against the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party in 2016. That was a Microsoft vice president saying a few days ago that his company has caught efforts by Russia to attack at least 3 specific candidates in this year's midterms. But he wouldn't say who they were. Now tonight, thanks to new investigative reporting from the Daily Beast, we know who at least one of those candidates is. And surprise, it is the #1 most wanted Democratic senator being targeted by Republicans in U.S. Senate elections this year. Here's the report from Daily Beast tonight. Quote, Senator Claire McCaskill is a top target for Republicans looking to grow their slim Senate majority in 2018. Turns out Russia's fancy bear hackers are going after her staff, too. Quote, that makes the Missouri Democrat the first identified target of the Kremlin's 2018 election interference. The attempt against McCaskill's office was a variant of the password-stealing technique used by Russian hackers against Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta in 2016. The hackers sent forged notification emails claiming the target's Microsoft Exchange password had expired and instructing the target to change it. If the target clicked on the link, he or she would be taken to a convincing replica of the U.S. Senate's login page, a single sign-on point for email and other services. As with the Podesta phishing, each Senate phishing email had a different link coded with the recipient's email address. That's important because that allowed the fake password change website, the fake one, to display the user's email address when the target arrived at that address, making the site appear all the more convincing. The Daily Beast reporters then explain how they investigated which congressional candidates might have been targeted with this technique following that announcement from Microsoft that Microsoft had spotted 3 targeted campaigns. Daily Beast reporters explain, quote, a snapshot of a deep link on the phishing site taken by a website security scanner showed the fake password change page with the Senate email address of a Claire McCaskill policy aide on display. And that's how they figured out that the first known target of Russian midterm election interference this year is Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. Joining us now is one of the reporters who broke the news that